She says she wants a sensitive man, someone who listens, someone in touch with his emotions, someone soft. But when the lights dim, when no one's watching, when instinct overrides ideology, she reaches for something else entirely. A man of strength, certainty, direction. A masculine man. Welcome back to the channel, the place where we challenge the narratives, question the trends, and peel back the layers of what it means to be a man in the modern world. If you're tired of the noise, the confusion, and the mixed messages, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on one of society's most uncomfortable truths. Why do women crave masculine men, even if they won't admit it out loud? This isn't about outdated stereotypes. This is about biology, psychology, evolution, and the quiet war between what women say and what their bodies are wired to desire. To understand the truth, we have to go back. Not 10 years, not 100, but thousands. Before the skyscrapers and smartphones. Back to the wild, the primal, the raw. In the ancient savannas of Africa, a woman's survival depended on one thing: her ability to choose a man who could protect her and her offspring. Not just any man, a man who could withstand famine, defend against predators, hunt, lead, provide. In that world, masculinity wasn't a preference. It was a matter of life or death. Her body, her mind, her instincts were shaped by generations of that brutal truth. Fast forward to now, and what do we see? Comfort, air conditioning, grocery delivery, and with it, a massive shift in how we talk about gender roles. Strength is seen as toxic, assertiveness is mistaken for aggression, and masculinity, well, some say it's outdated, maybe even dangerous. But is it? Despite all the social rewiring, studies show that across cultures, from bustling metropolises to isolated tribes, women consistently rate masculine traits as more attractive in romantic partners. Deep voice, higher testosterone levels, broad shoulders, all markers of health, fertility, and dominance. But why? Because deep down, biology doesn't care about hashtags. Evolution doesn't read think pieces. It only knows survival, reproduction, security. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. You've probably heard the term alpha male. It's overused, mocked, even despised by certain groups. But underneath the memes and exaggerations lies a deeper archetype. The man who leads when others hesitate, who moves with purpose, who radiates calm under pressure. He doesn't need to shout. His presence is felt. And that presence, it triggers something ancient in the female brain, something beyond logic, beyond language. Ever noticed how women will say they want a nice guy, but fall head over heels for the man who challenges them, ignores their games, and walks with unapologetic self-respect? It's not because they're confused. It's because desire isn't polite. Desire doesn't care about political correctness. Desire is raw, and it obeys rules that were written long before the first tweet. Let me tell you a story. A friend of mine, let's call him Eric, was the textbook definition of a good guy. Empathetic, thoughtful, always available. He dated a woman who told him day after day how much she loved his kindness, that she was so lucky. But over time, he noticed something. She stopped respecting him. She started testing his limits, talking to him with less admiration, more sarcasm. Eventually, she left. For a man who, by all modern standards, was far more problematic. But this man had boundaries, vision. He didn't apologize for being masculine, and that captivated her. You see, the modern world tells men to shrink themselves, to become passive, to avoid offense at all costs. But women are not drawn to passivity. They're drawn to polarity, masculine and feminine, positive and negative, strength and softness. And when the polarity disappears, so does the passion. This isn't about domination, it's about presence, integrity, the ability to stand firm in a storm without losing your center. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to bark orders. True masculinity isn't performative. It's not a costume. It's a calm, grounded energy. One that says, I know who I am. I lead myself. I don't beg for approval. And ironically, that's what makes women lean in. But here's the twist. Most women won't admit this, not publicly. Some don't even fully understand it themselves. Why? Because we live in a time where admitting that you crave masculine energy can be interpreted as weak, backward, or even internalized oppression. So instead, it gets buried, masked with surface-level preferences. But in private, when she's alone with herself, the truth whispers. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon extensively. One study from the University of Texas found that women's preferences for masculine traits spike during ovulation. In other words, when their fertility is highest, their attraction to strong, dominant masculine men intensifies. Again, biology speaks louder than opinion. But even outside of hormonal cycles, there's a deep psychological craving for safety. And true masculinity, when healthy, provides that. Emotionally, physically, spiritually. The masculine man creates a container, a space where the feminine can relax, express, surrender. Not in submission, but in trust. And when that space is absent, you see it. Constant conflict, power struggles, relationships that look good on paper, but feel empty behind closed doors. The modern dating world is full of men confused about their role, unsure whether being assertive is abusive or being passive is attractive. And it's easy to see why. The messaging is relentless. But what they don't realize is that by neutering their natural masculine core, they're not becoming more lovable. They're becoming invisible. Because here's the quiet truth. A woman may love a man for being sensitive, emotionally intelligent, and supportive. But she desires a man for being grounded, strong, and self-led. And the greatest mistake a man can make is confusing the two. What's even more fascinating is how this dynamic plays out over time. At first, women may be drawn to the man who bends over backward for them. It feels comforting, familiar. But over time, that comfort fades into boredom, and boredom into resentment. Not because she's cruel, but because unconsciously she feels the burden of leadership fall on her shoulders. She begins to feel unsafe, not from danger, but from the weight of masculine absence. And she starts to drift. You can see this in real-life relationships, in pop culture, even in mythology. The feminine craves to be met by the masculine, not controlled, but matched. Held, not coddled, but inspired. And when she meets that energy, everything changes. When she meets a man who walks into a room with quiet authority, who listens more than he speaks, whose values are carved in stone, she notices. She may not show it. She might even resist it at first, tell herself it's just a fluke, a spark. But inside, something ancient stirs. It's not about looks. It's not about wealth. It's about presence. The kind of presence that says, I don't chase, I don't beg, I build. The irony is, we live in a world saturated with masculine aesthetics, but starving for actual masculine essence. Filters and gym selfies don't make a man masculine. Neither does bravado, aggression, or trying to dominate others. True masculinity isn't about control. It's about stability, depth, direction, and that's what she's craving, often without knowing how to articulate it. Let's pause and look at the science again. In 2014, researchers conducted a study that showed how women's attraction levels shifted dramatically based on perceived status and emotional control. The men who were calm, composed, and spoke with authority consistently ranked higher in desirability than those who were overly emotional or reactive, even if the latter were considered more conventionally handsome. Why? Because emotional control signals strength, reliability, leadership. Think about it. In the chaos of life, in a world that never stops screaming, what woman doesn't want a man who makes her feel like everything will be okay? Now let's address the elephant in the room. What about the cultural shift? The push for gender neutrality, for balance, for rethinking traditional roles? That conversation matters. But here's what's often missed. Polarity doesn't mean inequality. Masculine and feminine energies are equal in value, but different in function. The problem isn't that masculinity exists. It's that many men don't know how to embody it in its mature form. They swing between extremes, the passive, people-pleasing nice guy, or the arrogant, controlling brute. But the truth lies in the middle, in the integrated man. He is firm but kind, confident but not cocky, protective without being possessive. He holds his frame, physically and emotionally. And most importantly, he doesn't need a woman to complete him. He chooses her from a place of abundance, not lack, and that is irresistibly attractive. There's a reason movies still portray the rugged hero, the mysterious leader, the man who doesn't flinch under pressure, because those characters tap into something we've forgotten, a primal recognition, that no matter how modern we become, our hearts are still wired for ancient truths. Let me share another story. A woman once confessed, off the record, that she broke up with a perfectly kind man because she couldn't trust him in crisis. He was supportive during normal times, but when her world fell apart, he froze. She said, "He looked at me like he wanted me to lead. I needed a rock, and I got a sponge." Her words weren't cruel. They were raw, honest. And they echoed what so many won't say aloud, that love without respect doesn't last. And respect is earned through strength, not just physical, but psychological, emotional, spiritual. So where does that leave you? If you're a man watching this, feeling lost in a culture that seems to punish your nature, hear this. You don't need to shrink. You don't need to apologize for wanting to lead, to protect, to provide, to dominate your purpose. You just need to channel it with honor, with wisdom, with emotional mastery. Develop your mission. Build your body. Speak with clarity. Set boundaries like stone. Love fiercely, but never from desperation. When you do this, the right woman will feel it. She may not know why, but she'll be drawn to it like gravity, because that's what masculinity is. Not noise, not ego, but gravity. A pull, a presence, a fire that warms, not burns. And if you're a woman watching this, maybe you're nodding quietly. Maybe you're remembering someone from your past. Or maybe you're realizing why your current relationship feels like something's missing. This isn't about blame. It's about recognition. You don't crave masculinity because you're weak. You crave it because you're strong. And you need an equal opposite. A force that can hold your chaos with calm. We live in a time that loves to blur lines, but attraction thrives on contrast. The world needs men who aren't afraid to be men, who embrace the weight of responsibility, who sharpen their mind, their discipline, their character. Men who aren't swayed by opinion polls or performative trends. Men who know who they are and walk in that knowing. So, why do women crave masculine men? Because beneath the social layers, beyond the politics, behind every "I want a nice guy," is a whisper, a primal pull toward strength, presence, and polarity. And maybe, just maybe, it's time we stop pretending otherwise. Pause. Fade in cinematic score. The narrator lowers their voice. You were not born to be neutral. You were not made to fade. You were built to lead, to protect, to forge a path where there is none. Not for control, but for creation. The masculine is not the enemy. It's the missing piece. And those who deny it, they'll still be drawn to it, in silence. Final thought, calm, haunting tone. If this video sparked something in you, a memory, a question, a realization, drop a comment below. Let's have the real conversations, the ones we're not supposed to have. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We're just getting started. Because in a world trying to make men weaker, it's the strong ones who rise.